Welcome back to Movies TV Mad, and welcome to Saturday's edition of the DCU Daily. You can find me at the award-winning ex-Twitter Movies TV Mad. Well, it's only an award I've given to myself, but follow me on Twitter, ex-Twitter at Movies TV Mad. And if you want to find out where all my other social media platforms are, you can ask me by tagging me on X Twitter. So welcome to Saturday's edition of the DCU Daily. It's very interesting, actually. Yesterday, I was like this on a conference call with some industry folk. I was pitching two of my scripts, Saving Judy Garland and Human Nature. And if you don't know, Saving Judy Garland is about a man like me, my age, lives on his own. He's obsessed with movies and television. He's obsessed with Judy Garland and The Wizard of Oz. The beginning of the film is shot in black and white. Then he's sucked through a tornado and taken back in time to 1938 during the production of The Wizard of Oz. Human Nature is a story of humanity invading an alien planet outside of our solar system. It's a silent movie with no dialogue, just the score. They loved both pitches, which is great. The only contention is that I want to play the lead role in Saving Judy Garland, and my acting experience is limited to amateur dramatics and porn. Yeah, that's right. I've been in porn before. I've written and directed and starred in my own porn movies. So a lot of people judge me for that, but I'm very proud of my history. I'm proud of my body. I love myself, as you all know. But it was very interesting because we started talking about the modern day industry, and I didn't save their feelings. I told them exactly how I feel. I think this is the worst era in entertainment history. And what I think about Superman and the discourse between the fandoms and all of that. So it was very, very interesting talking to these industry folk. Now, I know them because they knew my dad, and their kids that are now working in the industry knew my dad. So when your dad used to work in the industry and he was quite prominent in the entertainment industry behind the scenes, you can get away with being more blatant with these people. So today, I want to analyse the Superman box office so far, but also we've got a clearer picture how Superman will end up being globally over this weekend. Now, when I mean globally, I'm including the domestic North American box office as well. Now, when I first came onto Twitter in 2009, I used to get so confused about the box office because the journalists used to talk about domestic and sometimes wouldn't even mention the global. So it was confusing. Then slowly but surely, I understand it now, which is great. My dad for years tried to teach me about how the box office and analysis works, but I never really got it. But now, because mathematics is not my thing, but I get it now, so we can have a good old analysis. Laughingly, one box office analyst was claiming that Superman could get to 350 million domestically. We now know that's not going to happen. And, by the way, it's also got an A- cinema score, which is more than this fucking sludge deserves. But of course, America have always loved sludge. McDonald's is the #1 restaurant in America, and that shit will kill you. So, I mean, most of them have guns in their houses, so it doesn't surprise me that they would eat from a restaurant that could kill them. So, and their eating habits are similar to their viewing habits. They embrace sludge. And this Superman movie is sludge. But the general audience seem to like it enough to give it an A- cinema score. Well. The exact cinema score that Man of Steel got. So what's happening here is, and you'll find out that the box office is going to end up similar to Man of Steel. Everything, all the stats are echoing to Man of Steel. First of all, let's talk about the previews. So James Gunn's Superman has reached over $22 million in previews. But I believe they have added the Amazon fan screenings to that as well. That wouldn't surprise me. I said this many videos ago, and that's probably why it's so high. God knows why a box office analyst was predicting 350 million domestic, but this is what these shills are trying to do, hoping if they say some bullshit, it happens to be true. The Hollywood Reporter made an article a few days ago about how analysts were predicting 130 to 145 million. It's not going to get anywhere near that. So internationally, Superman from Wednesday and Thursday reached 40 million. Now we can make an assumption about the total weekend international box office now and say if the most it can make now is 20 million Friday, 20 million Saturday, and 20 million Sunday, because after 2 days when it's just come out, it made 20 million on each day, reaching just over 40 million for Wednesday and Thursday. Now, on Friday, domestically in North America, Superman made 55 million. This means that this film will reach no more than 115 to 120 million dollars domestically in North America. Now, Man of Steel, without adjusting for inflation, reached 116 million. Again, this means that the opening North American domestic box office is echoing what Man of Steel did. So there you go, 115 to 120 million. Even if it just beats, even if it beats Man of Steel, by a few million, it doesn't matter because we're not adjusting for inflation. If you adjust for inflation, Man of Steel financially shits all over James Gunn's Superman. It also shits over James Gunn's Superman in quality. Of course, I'll be watching Man of Steel a little bit later on because I feel like celebrating Superman and getting the stench of this James Gunn Superman film from my taste buds. So 40 million after 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday internationally, right? So by Friday it'll be 60, by Saturday it'll be 80. So internationally, right, it'll be about 100 million. Internationally it should be around 100 million. That's how I see it. It hasn't been doing great. So it could be 100 million or just under 100 million. So we are looking at a total global box office, it looks like, of 220 million. Don't forget, Jurassic Park Rebirth, which is also a shit movie, made over 300 million globally, which is very good. Not as good as the other 3 sludge Jurassic World movies, more bad movies that made money, but it's looking like Superman will reach at the most 220 million. So it's not that big, it's not that impressive, it's more than they deserve, but here's the issue now, because we're looking at the race between Superman 2025 and Man of Steel. Which movie will have the total better run by the end of this Superman box office run? I'm predicting that Man of Steel will beat Superman hands down. Because even if we don't adjust for inflation, as I said, if we do, then James Gunn's Superman is going to be the poorer cousin, right? The poorer cousin who loves a bit of incest, right? Anyway, so 220 million, it could be less than that, by the way. I'm predicting that this film next weekend will have a huge drop-off, right? So I don't foresee this movie getting anywhere near what Man of Steel did. Because Man of Steel did very, very well internationally. It did better internationally than it did domestically, and that's what got it over the line for its 670 million, right? And it took a long time to get to 200 million domestically, because I remember, because THR and Variety were loving the fact that that was the case. But Man of Steel was a huge hit globally. Globally, audiences have more culture and artistic taste. They have more of a, I think, better sensibilities in terms of cinematic art. I've already explained to you, the Americans' #1 restaurant is fucking McDonald's. That explains a lot. Now, no disrespect to my American viewers. I love the Americans. I love every country. I have no problem with any country, any sexuality. I don't care about that. What I'm saying is that you don't have good movie taste if you look at the history of American audiences. So I foresee, basically looking at the numbers, because we've already been told by THR that this Superman movie will not open at anything more than 120 million. Don't forget the big projections, 170 million, 200 million. This one I just told you about, 300 or to 350 million domestically. What a fucking joke. So this movie is opening up to around 220 million. And don't forget, my maths isn't great, but it's looking like that's the most it's going to do. And if I'm wrong, I'll put my hands up, as I always do, as I keep on saying on my videos and in real life. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. But it looks like this is going to open up to 220 million, and it's just going to drop off and drop off and drop off. And, you know, this is why they were saying they would be quite happy with 550 million. Now, they won't be happy with 550 million. They weren't happy with 670 million with Man of Steel. They're so desperate. They're such liars because they're going to keep on persisting with the James Gunn train. So they're hoping for 550, but the reality is 220. I'm just thinking about this. I don't see how they even get to 550 globally. I think they'll be lucky if they reach 450. Maybe they'll creep up to 500 million and pretend they're happy with it. So my friends, the box office for Superman is a disaster. As I said from the very beginning, this film has to be the best film ever made, one of the best films ever made, one of the best, if not the best, comic book movies ever made, and the box office had to be absolutely blockbusting, right? It had to be the first Avengers, it has to be, so huge. Now, Gunn has denied this and saying it doesn't need to make 700 million or anything like that. You're a fucking liar. You know what Warner Brothers want. You know that Warner Brothers are a struggling studio, as most of them are today, because of their own hands, because of their own behaviour, right? They couldn't run a piss up in a brewery because they let go of the titans of industry, as I've explained many, many times. So yes, 220 million globally, it's a disaster. This movie really needed to open up to around 500 million domestically, so it could reach maybe $1 billion. But this is not a $1 billion movie. It's simply not good enough. And the reason the reason I believe I know that this film will drop off huge next weekend, because it's so underwhelming. There's no reason to come back and watch it again. This is not a rewatchable movie. It's not. Some of the shills and the YouTubers, it's time for the second round and the third round, but that will not be repeated either domestically or globally by the general audience. I'll tell you what's going to happen next weekend. Everyone's going to be at home watching Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Snyder fans, my friends, it's time to do your victory lap. Mission accomplished. But here's the thing. This is not Zack Snyder's fault or his fans. His fans didn't really need to do anything. They could have been on the deck chair on the beach, down my very own local beach, Nissy Beach, with a fucking cigar. Because James Gunn damaged the box office potential of this movie with his laziness. And let me explain to you one of the things he fucking gets wrong. In his attempt to make Superman relatable, he makes him a physical weakling and has his hero say that he's human. No, Superman, you are not human physically. Having someone beaten from pillow to post for 2 hours, right, of a movie doesn't make them relatable and doesn't make them human. Basically, people criticise Snyder, Goya, Nolan and Terrio for making Henry Cavill's Superman a god. He has the power of a god. His DNA isn't human, right? Which this film forgets to add in. The idea of the Reeves Superman, of the Smallville Superman, of the Superman and Lois Superman, of the Dean Cain Superman, all the superior to James Gunn's Superman adaptations of Superman. His mentality is human because he's been on Earth since he's been a little boy. So he has no other mentality than human. But physically, he's a fucking god. So his challenges in all the superior adaptations of Superman is emotional. And his, conflicts with his friends and his family and the human race. Mentally, he's human. But physically, he's a fucking god. He's an alien. This is what Gunn ignored to do. And I'll explain to you why. Because Gunn is a lazy hack. He's so lazy and inept, and he doesn't have the qualities as a storyteller and a writer to give this character emotional obstacles, so he has him getting beaten up because he's too lazy to do anything else.